Paris, a cold, rainy night, where the steady raindrops falling on the city's ancient rooftops seemed to carry with them the sorrowful souls and untold stories. The heavy, chilling atmosphere reflected the dark secrets hidden within the powerful. That night, under the city's dim lights, the fateful encounter between Isabella and Alejandro marked the turning point of a destiny that would never return. Isabella stood by the large window of the grand ballroom, her contemplative gaze lost in the sight of the relentless rain beating against the glass panes. She was just an ordinary girl, working at a prestigious fashion company in Paris. But her life seemed to have only just begun when she stepped into the world of power and wealth. That night, as she was lost in thoughts of the future and her simple hopes, an unexpected incident shattered everything. Suddenly, a glass of rich red wine flew through the air, splashing directly onto her face. The intoxicating scent of wine mingled with the damp, musty smell of rain, turning the atmosphere into one of chaos and tension. She felt the cold liquid seep through her hair, trailing down into every fiber of her clothes, and in that moment, a mix of humiliation and helplessness overwhelmed her. There was nowhere to hide. A deep, cold voice emerged from the darkness of the room. "I can buy you, or I can destroy you. Choose." The words cut through the air like sharp daggers, piercing straight into Isabella's soul, making her realize that her fate was no longer her own. It was not just a threat, but a declaration from an overwhelming force, one that could dictate the lives and destinies of all around it. This scene unfolded in the lavish Devereux estate, where the wealthy and powerful gathered, exchanging deceitful promises, secret deals hidden behind mocking smiles and icy gazes. Amid the grandeur of the ballroom, flickering chandeliers cast a soft glow on indifferent expressions, concealing the ruthless power struggles beneath. Isabella, with her simple appearance yet a heart filled with dreams and hope, had now been drawn into a game with no escape, where people were nothing more than pawns on the chessboard of financial and political titans. As the lively sounds of the party faded beneath the steady rhythm of the rain outside, Isabella felt the weight of loneliness pressing down on her. She did not belong to the elite, yet fate had placed her here, as if orchestrating her entry into a world of power and ambition. In her hands was a contract, once nothing more than a lifeless document, but now a testament to deception and merciless control. It was more than paper. It was a binding commitment, a tether to a dark force she had never encountered before. In the turmoil of that moment, her thoughts swirled in a storm of fear and uncertainty. Isabella couldn't help but recall the peaceful days of her past, waking up to a morning filled with belief in a new day, the simplicity of laughter, and the innocence of small dreams.
I stepped into the elevator, not realizing that this was the fateful moment that would change my entire life. After a long, tiring day, I just want to quickly go home, take a hot shower, and fall asleep. I pressed the button for the 18th floor, and the cold metal door slowly closed. But right at the last second, a strong arm stopped it. A strong scent of incense spread into the cramped space, making me shiver involuntarily. I immediately recognized the man who had just entered, Alexander Knight. The man lives on the top floor, the most powerful person in this building. He entered with a leisurely demeanor, but his presence seemed to occupy the entire space. The dark suit hugs his tall body, giving off a dangerous yet strangely attractive look. He didn't look at me right away, just slightly adjusted his sleeve, then stood up straight, his eyes glued to the flashing numbers on the dashboard. I crouched in a corner, my heart suddenly pounding. The narrow space of the elevator suddenly became stuffy and made it difficult to breathe. I heard the sound of my heartbeat echoing in my eardrums, or perhaps it was just an illusion brought on by stress. It was the first time I stood so close to him. The elevator vibrated slightly as the doors closed, then began to move. I tried to ignore him, but his eyes wouldn't. He looked at me. Not simply a glance, but a deep gaze that seemed to penetrate every corner of my soul. Unconsciously, I raised my hand to adjust my collar, trying to create an invisible distance. But at that moment, the elevator vibrated. The lights flashed madly. Already, everything shut down. Darkness covers. I froze. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. What the hell? I hastily pressed the emergency button, but to no avail. There were no responses. Next to me, Alexander stood still, completely calm, not a bit of panic. I turned around, trying to see his face clearly in the darkness. We're stuck, silent. I pressed the button again. Nothing changes. No rescue signal, no sound of the engine restarting. The stuffiness of the closed space made me start to feel suffocated. I clutched the handrail tightly, trying to stay calm. But then a voice rang out in the darkness. Good. Good? I turned around. There was no worry in his voice. On the contrary, it was chillingly cold. Then the weak light from the backup power system turned on.
But now, all of that seemed like a distant past, as she was thrust into an entirely different universe, where power and money dictated everything. Each heartbeat pounded like an omen, signaling the end of tranquility and the beginning of an endless battle. At that very instant, Isabella realized she had unknowingly become the victim of a grave mistake. A mere moment of carelessness, an unintentional decision, had opened the door for two of the most formidable figures in the Devereaux family, Alejandro and Santiago, to step into her life, bringing with them dark secrets and dangerous schemes. Alejandro, the head of the Devereaux financial empire, embodied ruthless power and calculated precision. He was not just a businessman, but a master strategist, viewing people as mere instruments to achieve his goals. To him, Isabella was now nothing more than an easily manipulated piece on his chessboard. Surrounded by the opulence of the grand party and the imposing presence of the powerful, Isabella began to sense a profound shift within herself. She started to understand that behind the cold exteriors and secret deals, there were also people burdened by their own pain and longing for love. In that moment, flashes of the past flickered like a distant torch in the night, reminding her that despite being pulled into this ruthless game, within her still resided a yearning for life, love, and freedom. These thoughts crept into her mind as she slowly grasped the reality that her fate was now entangled in the intricate web of power and wealth. The contract in her hands was not just a document, it was a symbol of her loss of freedom. She felt trapped between two worlds, the world of dreams, hope, and independence that once nurtured her, and the world of ambition, cruelty, and oppression that now sought to consume her. As the rain poured heavier outside, Isabella felt the creeping cold of fate threatening to swallow her whole. Alejandro's voice still echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that no matter how hard she tried, her destiny was now bound to a dark contract. Yet, amid the looming darkness, a faint light flickered inside her, a glimmer of hope that, despite being caught in a game of power, she could still reclaim herself. For Isabella, the encounter with the Devereaux brothers was not just an unexpected event, but the doorway to a world of power and intricate conspiracies. In that moment, she realized she was no longer a free person, but a mere pawn in a game controlled by two powerful men, Alejandro and Santiago. Alejandro, with his cold demeanor and absolute authority, embodied strength and ruthlessness. He wielded wealth and power to manipulate everything around him. To him, people were merely tools to serve his purpose. His chilling words, "I can buy you or I can destroy you, choose," were not just a personal threat, but the declaration of an unstoppable force, willing to discard anyone who failed to serve his interests. In contrast, Santiago, the younger brother, possessed a charming, poetic allure, yet harbored deep inner turmoil. A brilliant artist with eyes that concealed pain and a history of sins, Santiago had an uncanny ability to capture hearts. But beneath his exterior lay dark secrets and unhealed wounds, making his relationship with Isabella dangerously complex. As the soft glow of the party dimmed, replaced by shadows of deceit and clandestine dealings, Isabella felt the weight of her fate more clearly than ever. From the moment she held the contract until now, her destiny had been dictated by forces beyond her control. The contract was not just a legal document. It was the key to an internal battle, between her longing for freedom and the suffocating grasp of power. Amidst the suffocating atmosphere of the lavish gathering, surrounded by whispers of the powerful, Isabella felt torn between two opposing realities. One part of her yearned to return to her dreams, her faith in love and freedom, while the other forced her to confront the merciless reality of a world where people were mere pieces to be moved. Every heartbeat reaffirmed her fears and pain, yet also carried an undying ember of hope. Isabella slowly began to recognize the resilience within her. Though imprisoned by the contract and Alejandro's threats, the fire of survival and defiance within her never waned. She vowed that no matter how cruel fate was, she would not become just another pawn in this game. She would find a way to reclaim her freedom, not just for herself, but for all those oppressed by the ruthless elite. Amid the shimmering lights and the mocking laughter of those around her, Isabella started to see the intricate nature of this world. She realized that behind Alejandro's icy facade was a man scarred by past losses he had never had the chance to heal. Santiago, for all his charm, bore the weight of painful memories that refused to fade. Each person, regardless of their place in this power struggle, carried deep wounds and dark secrets. As tension built both around her and within her, Isabella questioned whether she would ever escape Alejandro's grip and Santiago's enigma. She pondered her worth, the meaning of freedom, and the cost of her missteps. Each fear became a force driving her forward. As the rain outside continued to fall, Isabella found within herself the strength to rise. In the storm of power and ambition, she realized that no matter how cruel fate was, she had the ability to fight back. The memories of hopeful mornings and dreams, no matter how distant, fueled her belief that freedom and happiness awaited at the end of the road. From that night onward, Isabella vowed she would never let anyone dictate her fate. The road ahead would be treacherous, the weight of power heavy, but she believed in her ability to reclaim herself. For in the darkest storms, there was always a path to the light. Isabella woke in the midst of a rainy night, a chilling sensation overwhelming her soul as the eerie living room door creaked in the wind. That night, as the pale moonlight struggled through the thick clouds, an anonymous message appeared on her phone. "Run before it's too late." Those simple yet haunting words ignited in Isabella a flame of fear mixed with curiosity. She did not know who had sent the message, but one thing was certain. Something was lurking, tracking her every step. From that night on, strange signs began to appear continuously, making her life increasingly precarious and chaotic. In the following days, Isabella realized an undeniable truth. Santiago always appeared just in time to save her. Whenever she found herself in dangerous situations, from traffic accidents to sudden attacks by strangers, Santiago would always appear with agility and composure, as if he had foreseen every event. Alejandro, on the other hand, seemed to have known her all along. But why did he not say so? Alejandro, with his cold exterior tinged with indolence, appeared at the crucial moments in Isabella's life, yet he always kept his past hidden. His deep, inscrutable eyes never revealed any emotion, and every word he spoke carried a vague meaning, leaving Isabella wondering who was friend and who was foe. One gloomy afternoon, as Isabella wandered along the long corridors of the family mansion, she unexpectedly discovered a small door concealed behind an old painting. Overcome by a mix of curiosity and anxiety, Isabella could not resist the urge to open that door. Inside was a secret archive room, filled with ancient documents, faded images of lost faces, along with meticulous records of the dark events intertwined with this family. The files revealed that those who had ever been associated with this family had met tragic consequences, from vanishing without a trace to mysterious deaths. Every sheet of paper, every line of text seemed to contain a pain, a warning from the past. What truth is being concealed? Isabella gradually realized that her life was not as simple as she had once thought. She had been drawn into a mysterious network where every person had a role, and no one could escape a fate that had been predetermined. Everything began to blur and fill with fragmented pieces. But one thing remained unclear. Who was watching whom, and what was the true purpose of the people around her? Last night, as the cold wind blew through the broken window frames of the mansion, Isabella wondered, is everything merely a random coincidence? Or is there some invisible force orchestrating the fragments of fate? Every step she took was now being monitored. Every breath seemed to be counted by someone. Her eyes not only followed the darkness, but also strained to discern the smallest signs of a presence around her. And then, as the fragments of memories gradually surfaced in her mind, she began to ask herself, am I living in a play orchestrated by fate, where the scriptwriter hides in the shadows? The next day, the morning light did not carry its usual warmth. Isabella was still troubled by the anonymous message and the strange events unfolding around her. In her mind, the image of Santiago appeared with the aura of a mysterious hero, always arriving just in time to rescue her from danger. But gradually, a terrifying truth began to seep into her thoughts. Could it be that Santiago was not merely a protector? Isabella recalled an instance when she narrowly escaped a serious danger on a deserted road, and Santiago appeared like a phantom, without a word of explanation, only with his steady gaze and composed demeanor. A spine-chilling feeling overcame her as she realized the horrifying truth. Santiago had been tracking her for a long time before they ever met. Not only that, she increasingly sensed his presence not just as a rescuer, but also as a silent predator, meticulously following her every move. Every sign, every moment, opened a crack in the trust Isabella had once placed in others. Particularly, her relationship with Alejandro grew more complicated than ever. Initially, Isabella always believed that Alejandro was the most dangerous, a man with a murky past and dark secrets hidden behind his cold eyes. However, as new fragments gradually emerged from the secret files, a shocking twist upended all her thoughts. Alejandro is not entirely evil. Perhaps he is the only one who can protect me from Santiago. That statement hit her like a shock, leaving Isabella unable to believe her eyes. The image of Alejandro, the one who had appeared in perilous moments with a calm yet enigmatic presence, was now cast in an entirely new light. Perhaps all along, Alejandro had been silently watching over her, ready to confront Santiago, the very person she had never suspected to be the true danger. Under the dim lights of the archive room, Isabella stared at every line of text and every faded image with a heavy heart. She recalled the moments when she first met Santiago, his eyes cold, yet carrying a hint of remorse, as if he had always regretted being unable to do anything other than watch her from afar. Those memories now turned dark and conflicted, leaving her to wonder, who is the predator and who is truly the prey? She gradually realized that in a world where the truth was always distorted, every relationship was wrapped in complex layers. Santiago, the one she once thought was her savior, now emerged like a cold phantom, silently manipulating her fate from behind the scenes. And Alejandro, the man she had once suspected for his ambiguous past, might indeed be the only one capable of getting her out of Santiago's deadly clutches. In Isabella's mind, the tumult of thoughts was like a raging storm. She could not take her eyes off the old family portrait, where the gazes of the members seemed to hide a great secret. Every expression, every wrinkle contained unspoken words. She wondered, why has everything become so complicated? Why do the people around me always harbor secrets that I cannot comprehend? These unanswered questions echoed in her mind, leaving her feeling trapped and helpless. One evening, when the atmosphere became heavy and filled with whispers of the past, Isabella decided to confront the truth. She went to Alejandro's study, a room of quiet where only the ticking of the clock reminded her that time was passing and would never return. Her eyes were filled with determination, mingled with fear, and a longing to uncover the truth. Alejandro, I need to know everything. Why do you always appear when I'm in danger? Why do you never speak clearly about your past? The question resonated in the silent space as a challenge to all the secrets that had been hidden for so many years.
Alejandro slowly stood up, his eyes gazing into the void as if recalling a long-forgotten past. After a moment of silence, he gently replied,
Isabella, there are things that cannot be explained in words. Every person has a past, and the truth is not always meant to be revealed clearly. Sometime, we must explore and confront the old pains ourselves. Alejandro's words left Isabella even more confused. She could not draw a conclusion, but an inner feeling surged that the truth was gradually coming to light, like fragments of a horrifying picture she had never dared to imagine.
The image of Santiago, the one she believed to be her protector, now interjected as a cunning predator,
lurking in the darkness, ready to manipulate her every move. In the nights that followed, Isabella continued to rummage through every file and trace in search of the connection among the people around her. She discovered that those who had appeared in the family's history all shared one key point. They had all met tragic fates after coming into contact with the family's dark secrets. An old note written in trembling ink read like a prophecy foretold long ago. Those from the past will be revealed, and the predator will never forsake its prey. These words were not only a warning, but also evidence of the existence of an invisible force silently manipulating the fate of every individual. Isabella realized that in her life, there were profound connections she had never recognized, from anonymous warnings to the hazy images of those who once lived, now only memories fading with time. She wondered if everything that happened was orchestrated by an unseen force, an anonymous figure from the past. Could it be that she was trapped in a vortex of fate, where every choice was merely an illusion of freedom? That night, as the rain continued unabated, Isabella sat by the window, watching the scattered raindrops fall on the ground. She felt her soul as if it were being torn apart, between belief and doubt, between hope and fear. In that moment, the image of Santiago emerged in her mind, no longer as the heroic protector, but now as cold and scheming. She recalled every moment of his appearance, every piercing glance, as if to say, "I know everything, and I will not allow anyone to interfere with my destiny." The chaotic thoughts drove her into an emotional storm, where every value she had once trusted was completely overturned. No one was entirely good or entirely evil. There were only people with dark secrets, painful pasts, and destinies woven by fragments of truth and deception. On a dismal sunny day, after long nights of inner turmoil, Isabella decided to confront Santiago directly. She found him in a secluded corner of the mansion, where the weak light seeped through the old window panes, casting shimmering shadows on the walls. The tension between them was so palpable that a single word would be enough to shake the entire space. "Santiago, why do you always appear when I'm in danger? Do you know that it's not just about saving me, but also about constant surveillance, about being watched without ceasing?" Isabella's voice trembled, yet was laced with determination, as if she were challenging a power that transcended human limits. Santiago stood there, his gaze unchanging, cold, composed, as if he had grown accustomed to her reproaches over time. He merely gave a slight smirk and replied in a sonorous voice, "You once believed that everything was clear-cut, but the truth is often not as we expect. There are secrets that are never revealed, and there are those who silently protect you even when you do not realize it." His words were an ambiguous answer, failing to dispel all of Isabella's doubts and only deepening her confusion. The image of Alejandro, like a ghost lurking in the distance, seemed to be silently observing everything. She wondered, could it be that Alejandro, too, is entangled in this game of power? Or is he the only one who can lead me out of fate's vicious circle? The contrast between the two, Santiago with his cold demeanor and Alejandro with his solemn, remorseful expression, only heightened the uncertainty in Isabella's heart. She began to recall the words Alejandro had spoken, the moments when he looked at her with a gaze no one else could possess. Perhaps,
deep within him lay a past pain that could only be soothed by sincerity and loyalty. Yet, could she really trust him when everything around was shrouded in suspicion and deceit? Isabella had no choice but to continue her journey in search of the truth, knowing that every step she took might lead to unforeseen dangers. Every file, every old piece of paper she sifted through was not only evidence of past events, but also a fragment of a larger story, a story about fate, about the intricate connections between people and destiny. On a foggy afternoon, as golden leaves fell like tears of time, Isabella found an old diary carefully hidden in the corner of the mansion's wardrobe. That diary contained the confessions of a woman who had once lived in this house long ago.
The flowing ink on its pages not only recounted daily life, but also revealed the deep secrets of the family, secrets intimately connected to
the disappearances and even to the fate of those daring enough to confront the truth.
The diary recounted a time when faith and love seemed to have been forgotten amid the conspiracies and the bindings of power. The writer had warned that if anyone dared to tamper with those secrets, the consequences would be devastating. Reading the diary, Isabella felt as if her heart were pierced by the needles of truth, and she wondered if there could ever be a time when people like Santiago and Alejandro were not only victims of the past, but also those who tried to mend their own mistakes. The lines in the diary gradually led her to a new realization. Nothing was simply black and white, right and wrong. Every person harbored darkness, moments of weakness, and decisions for which they had to bear responsibility. Perhaps in her life, no one was entirely pure or utterly wicked. Everyone lived amid their own contradictions, between the desire to be loved and the fear of being hurt. Day by day, the anxiety and the feeling of being followed became ever more evident. Isabella sensed the presence of something inexplicable, a ghost, a spirit from the past, seemingly guarding her every step. The haunting nightmares left her sleepless, and every morning upon waking, she grew even more fearful of the truth she was gradually uncovering. In her quest for answers, Isabella decided to confront Alejandro once again. She went to the mansion's living room, where the weak afternoon light filtered through the window frame, casting long shadows on the ancient floor. Her eyes were full of determination and inner torment. Alejandro,
"Don't you know? I found the old diary, and it reveals the painful past of this family.
but what confuses me most is everything related to you and Santiago. Can you tell me the truth? Why do you always remain silent when I need answers?" Alejandro sat down, his hands gently caressing the old papers,
as if seeking solace in the memories of the past.
He took a deep breath,
Then slowly said,
"Isabella, there are pasts that we cannot change, and there are decisions that only time can erase. I know you want to know the truth, but sometimes the truth is not what we expect. Santiago, he has been a part of this story for a very long time. You must understand that sometimes the one we deem as the villain may only be a victim of fate, and the one you suspect might very well be the one who wants to save you." Alejandro's words left Isabella even more perplexed. In her mind, the images of Santiago and Alejandro were being pieced together into a grand picture, one where no one could be separated from their destiny. She wondered, can one ever escape the past?
from the secrets that time has etched into one's heart.
In the days that followed, Isabella tried to confront the past on her own, facing the painful memories and the warnings of the diary. She visited places once connected to the family, where every wall, every corner held sorrowful stories.
Every step she took seemed guided by an invisible force, every sound, every image reminding her of a destiny extinguished too soon. On a rainy afternoon, as droplets pounded relentlessly on the window like an unceasing heartbeat,
Isabella found another letter, a new anonymous letter that contained so many details it made her shudder. In the letter,
there were aching lines of text like a reminder that not everyone can escape the past. Be awake, for your destiny has been woven long ago. That letter was not only a warning, but also an affirmation of the existence of an invisible force, controlling every event and the fate of those connected to this family. Isabella realized that every step she took was being watched, and the truth, even as painful as it might be, would soon come to light.
In that moment of confusion, she recalled Alejandro's words, that there are secrets which cannot be explained in words,
and that everyone has a darkness within. She wondered if those whom she once regarded as her protectors were, in fact,
the ones drowning in inner conflict, carrying painful pasts that no one could ever erase. One night, after the moon had hidden behind dense clouds, Isabella sat alone in the mansion's garden, where the flowers were slowly withering with time. She felt the loneliness and the sense of entrapment, yet also a strong determination to uncover all the answers. In the darkness, the wind howled through the trees like the whispers of departed souls, reminding her, fate never forgives those who dare to confront the truth. But Isabella knew that no matter how painful the truth might be, she could not retreat. She decided to continue her search, to lift the veil that concealed the past so that the light of truth could shine into the darkest corners. Even if the fragments of memory caused her pain, it was the only path leading to freedom. Freedom from the ghosts of the past and from the manipulation of fate. The next morning, as dawn broke, Isabella returned to the secret archive room. She unfolded every sheet, every page of the diary, with eyes shining as if searching for a missing piece of the overall puzzle. Gradually revealed hidden truths about the connection between the family and the tragic events of the past,
about the interference of unseen forces, and about the roles of Santiago and Alejandro in her life.
In those records, Isabella realized that she was not the first to be drawn into this dangerous game, and perhaps she would not be the last. Those before her had been swallowed by the vortex of truth and deception, their fates buried under the dust of time. She felt the pain of lost souls, the anguish of those who had suffered betrayal, deceit, and nameless sacrifices. These thoughts only deepened her confusion. Who is the predator? And who truly is the prey? That question rang out like a taunt from fate, reminding her that in this life nothing is as it seems at first glance.
The one she believed was her savior might actually be the silent predator stalking her, and the one she doubted might be the one who wishes to protect her from unforeseeable dangers.
As the days passed, Isabella gradually realized that she had to confront the past, learn to forgive, and accept what had happened. The truth, however painful it might be, was the key to unlocking the door to freedom. She decided that she would no longer let fear dictate her life. Even if the shadows of Santiago and Alejandro continued to cling like ghosts, in that moment she remembered Alejandro's words. There are secrets that we cannot erase,
but we can learn to live with them.
Those words were like a soothing balm for Isabella's weary soul. She understood that even if the past was filled with scars, only acceptance and forgiveness could help her rediscover herself. Isabella began reconnecting with those who had once been part of the family's past, those who might offer the missing pieces. She met old acquaintances, listened to the stories they told about strange events, about mysterious disappearances, and about warnings they had once heard. Every conversation, every fragment of memory was a small picture contributing to the overall canvas of a dark yet emotional story.
Meanwhile, Santiago and Alejandro continued to appear, each carrying their own secrets. Santiago, with his unchanging cold face,
still emerged whenever Isabella was in danger, like a somber shadow trailing her every step. Meanwhile, Alejandro gradually opened up more,
trying to explain past events and sharing with her the memories of a past he had long kept hidden.
One afternoon, after conversing with an old family friend, Isabella discovered a new piece of the puzzle. This friend recounted that many years ago, a horrifying event had taken place at the mansion, a night of torrential rain when everyone fled in terror due to an anonymous warning, and no one dared to look back. The friend said that since then,
the mansion had been haunted by the spirits of those who had disappeared,
souls that could never find rest. Bella listened, her heart shattering in a mix of sorrow and fear. She clearly felt that everything in her life was intertwined with a past full of pain and betrayal. Yet, it was precisely that pain which became the material from which she could rebuild her life, to find a way to live with the truth, even if that truth might shatter her. Day by day, as Isabella gradually uncovered the fragments of the story she never knew, she realized that Santiago was not merely a predator, but also a puppet in the hands of a larger force, a force that had silently manipulated the family's fate for generations. And Alejandro, the man she once doubted, was indeed the one who had long tried to break the cycle of destiny, to protect her from the dangers that fate imposed. In a tense meeting between Isabella, Santiago, and Alejandro, every connection gradually became clear. Santiago admitted that he had been tracking her for a very long time, since she was just a child, as if her fate had been determined from the moment she was born. He said that he never intended to harm her, yet he could not abandon his role, the role of a guardian of the family's dark secrets. Alejandro then spoke. Isabella, you must understand that not everyone can escape their fate. Every person must face the decisions they are bound to, and there are those who never have the chance to live freely. Santiago is just one piece of the puzzle, a piece you must learn to accept, even if it causes you pain. Alejandro's words made Isabella feel as if her heart were being torn apart. She understood that the truth was always complex and could not be encapsulated in simple answers. The truth was a series of fragments, from the past to the present, from pain to hope. She realized that to find liberation, she not only needed to confront the family's secrets, but also to face herself with all her fears, sacrifices, and past mistakes. Before leaving the mansion, Isabella stood before an old mirror, gazing deeply into her own eyes. She asked herself, do I have the courage to face everything that is to come? Can I live with the truth, a bitter truth, yet one filled with emotion? In that moment, she realized that life was not about perfect answers, but about accepting the broken pieces of the past to rebuild the future. She decided that she would not let fear control her, that she would stand tall and continue along the path fate had set, even if that path was fraught with danger and sorrow. In the days that followed, Isabella began reaching out to those connected to the mansion's past. She found people who had once lived there, who had faced the brutal truth of the family. Every story they shared was another fragment added to the overall picture, a picture that gradually revealed a complex truth, that no one can completely escape destiny. Meanwhile, strange signs reappeared. Once again, an anonymous message was sent to her phone. Run before it's too late. That warning echoed from the past, reminding her that no matter how hard she tried, fate was always lying in wait, ready to strike at the weakest moment. But this time, Isabella was no longer trembling with fear. She had come to understand that to live, she must face the pain, confront the truth even if it might break her. Even though the days that followed were filled with sorrowful fragments and unforeseen events, Isabella continued her quest for truth. She knew that within the broken pieces of the past might lie the key to unlocking the door to freedom. And in her heart, even if the darkness of fate loomed large, there still existed a ray of hope, a hope that one day all secrets would be exposed, and she would rediscover herself amid the fragments of destiny. Day by day, with every step she took, Isabella gradually merged into a new life, a life no longer defined solely by fear and horrific mysteries. She learned to accept the complexity of human nature, accepting that within every person there existed both light and shadow. The truth, however painful it might be, remained the only thing that could help her reclaim freedom. Freedom from the shackles of the past and from unfulfilled promises. In the final moments of her journey, as the fragments of the story slowly fell into place, Isabella stood before the mansion's window, watching the brilliant sunset as a final chapter to a turbulent life. She knew that from now on, she would no longer be the prey of fate, but the master of her own destiny. Even though Santiago and Alejandro remained deeply conflicted individuals, Isabella had come to understand that every person has a story,
And every story deserves to be told with all its truth, even if that truth might be distorted, even if it is not perfect. The big question still echoed in her mind.
who is the predator and who truly is the prey? But that question was no longer a challenge born of fear. It was a reminder that in life, each person must find their own path, a path that they can never escape if they keep running. Isabella chose to stand firm amid the storm, to confront the past and look toward the future. Even if the fragments of memory still held much pain, Isabella stood in the gloomy space of a torrential, rainy afternoon, her soul weighed down by the mysteries surrounding the Devereux family.
She decided that she would no longer be a puppet in the hands of others, but instead take control of her own troubled life.
The questions and intertwined fragments of the past had led her down a dangerous road from which there was no turning back. Isabella began playing her own game by meticulously searching every dark corner of the Devereux family history. Every document, every old letter, and every rumor was like a piece of a larger picture, painting an image of a mysterious past. During her investigation, she discovered signs of a mysterious woman, the one who had once held her position in the Devereux family. She decided that she would no longer be a puppet in the hands of others, but instead take control of her own troubled life. The questions and intertwined fragments of the past had led her down a dangerous road from which there was no turning back. Isabella began playing her own game by meticulously searching every dark corner of the Devereux family history. Every document, every old letter, and every rumor was like a piece of a larger picture, painting an image of a mysterious past. During her investigation, she discovered signs of a mysterious woman, the one who had once held her position in the Devereux family. The image of that woman always appeared through old records, faded photographs, and oral accounts. Although her identity was unclear, these clues stirred in Isabella a burning desire to know the truth, a desire to put an end to all the doubts about her own fate.
On one quiet, dark night, when the sparse streetlights filtered through the window frame of her study,
Isabella carefully opened each file of old records. Amidst the dusty pile of papers, she unexpectedly discovered a set of confidential documents, a collection of papers related to a marriage agreement that had never been revealed to the public. These documents meticulously recorded a complicated relationship, a marriage suppressed in the shadows of power and revenge. Every line of writing was imbued with a blend of faith and betrayal, of love and hatred. Isabella could feel the tension rising in every signature and every stroke of the dark ink. These were not merely legal papers, but also evidence of a dark past that her family and the Devereux family had shared. As she pondered, a feeling suddenly arose in Isabella's mind that she was being watched. Every step she took along the cold corridor of the ancient building, every strange sound echoing in the late night, was like a warning from an invisible force. Isabella could not shake off the terror that someone was silently monitoring her every move. That unease grew even stronger when she received cryptic messages, vague warnings sent through anonymous letters, and mysterious midnight phone calls. A recent incident made Isabella's fear more tangible than ever. A mysterious car accident that nearly killed her. It was not just a random accident, it seemed like a warning, a threatening message from the forces that were silently manipulating everything around her. The car had rolled down an empty road, its headlights feebly piercing the darkness, and immediately afterward, Isabella realized how lucky she was to be alive. Yet inside her, fear and burning anger surged relentlessly. This was a clear sign that someone, or a group of people, would never accept her courage and decisiveness. In the days following the incident, Isabella became increasingly immersed in the search for clues. She covertly followed the smallest signs, from secret meetings at deserted cafes to closed-door gatherings of influential figures. Every time she uncovered a new detail, her mind ignited with curiosity,
Yet at the same time, she felt the tremendous pressure of the forces lurking behind the scenes.
She knew that if too much were revealed, the truth itself might be suppressed by the power of those who controlled the shadows. Every scrap of document, every testimony from an old witness was like a whisper from the past, recounting tragic stories filled with sorrow and tears. Isabella clearly felt that the past of the Devereux family was not only about hidden secrets, but also a predetermined sentence for her own fate. However, instead of succumbing to helplessness, she decided to rise up and assert her autonomy. "I no longer want to be a puppet," she told herself, her determined eyes flashing amid the darkness. She had to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. During her investigation, Isabella not only had to confront the complex fragments of history, but also wrestle with the sense of threat from powerful forces. The appearance of strangers, the elusive silhouettes appearing in the hidden corners of the city, made her realize that she was stepping into a dangerous maze. The initially tiny clues gradually unveiled an overall picture of the overlapping relationships among the powerful. A mysterious woman who had once played the role that Isabella now held had vanished mysteriously, as if erased from history. This not only raised many questions about why she had left, but also about the true purpose of this investigation. Isabella had heard many stories about that woman from those present at the lavish parties of the aristocracy. They said she was a symbol of allure and intelligence, yet also a victim of ruthless intrigues. Her disappearance was not only a loss for the Devereux family, but also an important piece that made the picture of power blurred. With her sharp intellect and courage, Isabella decided to delve into the old stories, into every whispered secret in the secluded rooms, into every forgotten fragment of memory hidden in the darkest corners of the past. After countless sleepless nights, Isabella had gone through all the old documents, contacted those who had once served the Devereux family, and even sought out the few surviving witnesses of the past. She gradually realized that the story of the mysterious woman was not merely a personal tragedy, but also reflected a brutal power struggle among prestigious families. Every testimony, every fragment of memory was a piece that helped her slowly assemble the overall picture, a picture in which conspiracies and long-planted grudges had been sown for generations. At this moment, Isabella's emotions were a mixture of sorrow, anger, and an unyielding determination. Every time she remembered her loved ones who had sacrificed themselves, those who had been swept up in the inescapable storm of power, she felt an even greater desire to prove that she was not weak, not a puppet of fate. From that moment, she channeled her strength, learning from the mistakes of the past to build herself into a strong and independent woman. Not only was her quest about uncovering the truth, but Isabella's journey was also an internal battle. She had to face her deepest fears, painful memories, and the losses that could never be healed. Every step she took was a challenge from fate. Every discovery opened new doors filled with hazards. Behind the ancient walls of those documents, behind the barriers of power, Isabella could hear the sighs of the past, the lamentations of souls yet to be freed, the unexpected meetings with witnesses, the quiet conversations under the dim glow of old streetlights, revealed to her the truth that no one can escape the past. It clung to every person, to every trace of a bygone era. No matter how hard the powerful and the influential tried to hide it, the past silently affirmed its existence. And Isabella, with her courageous heart and steadfast belief in herself, decided that she would expose every mystery, regardless of the dangers. Alertness clung to her every moment, each second as if she were living under the shadow of death. But instead of retreating, Isabella became even more resolute. She was unafraid to confront any danger if it meant bringing her closer to the truth. The fear that once held her back had transformed into a driving force, pushing her forward against the cunning schemes and the ruthless power players. During long, sleepless nights by the solitary desk lamp, Isabella sat there, turning each page of the documents and listening to the pounding of her heart. In every word,
She could feel the vitality of the past, of souls that had once been betrayed and abandoned. And from that, she became even more convinced that she was not a plaything easily manipulated. She would decide her own fate, and anyone who tried to use her as a pawn on the chessboard of power would have to pay a heavy price. As the darkness of the night gradually yielded to the faint light of dawn, Isabella rose with a renewed determination. She realized that in the battle against the past, only courage and perseverance could help her overcome every trap. No matter how risky each step might be, she would not give up. Let those who sought to control her fate face the consequences of the very secrets they tried so hard to hide. Isabella, with her resilient soul and sharp intellect, had officially begun her journey to confront the darkness, to face the past, and to rediscover herself. The echoes of history, the whispers of the night, all seemed to sing in unison with her, cheering for independence and freedom. Isabella was no longer a victim, no longer a puppet of fate. She had become a warrior, a woman ready to sacrifice everything to protect herself and overturn any destiny. And with every step she took, with every breath she drew, she increasingly felt the power of truth, a power that could tear down every wall of deceit and betrayal. The road ahead was still full of dangers, but Isabella was no longer hesitant. With every new discovery, with every clue unveiled, she grew more confident in her own abilities. She understood that to regain control of her life, she must confront the ghosts of the past and bring every hidden secret to light. And even though the dark forces might threaten her life, Isabella's courage remained steadfast, ready to fight to the end to defend her truth and freedom. Within her, the echo of an unyielding vow resonated, like a promise to herself that she would never allow those who manipulated power to dictate her fate. Every line in the documents, every sign of being watched, was like a measure in a spiritual battle between the past and the present, between evil and truth. Isabella was slowly peeling away the protective layers, exposing the dark secrets that so many had silently concealed. And in each of those moments, she increasingly understood that only courage and determination could bring light into the thick darkness. As the morning light seeped through the window frame, Isabella gently closed the confidential file, her eyes filled with determination and the pain of the past. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but it was precisely that road that would lead her to freedom and justice. Stepping out of the room, she carried with her the belief that no matter how many dark forces lay in wait, the light of truth and the strength of courage would always guide the indomitable soul. As all the fragments of the past gradually emerged, Isabella suddenly realized a horrifying truth that had been concealed for so many years. She was not the person everyone had imagined. While she continued to delve into the secrets of the Devereux family, an unexpected revelation completely changed her perception of herself. Isabella discovered that she was, in fact, the lost daughter of a powerful family that had once fiercely opposed the Devereux. This truth struck her like a powerful shock, yet at the same time it opened the door to a new journey, where her true identity was redefined from the broken pieces of the past. Every vague memory, every hidden sign that Isabella had once sensed, now took on entirely new meaning. She recalled moments when she felt different, those unusual instances her heart could not explain. The conflicting emotions, the feeling of being caught between two worlds, had become the mark of a fate not as others had thought. Her true nature, that of a girl belonging to a noble, powerful, and mysterious bloodline, now shone forth amid the darkness of conspiracies and power. This realization was not only an act of self-discovery, but also a declaration to all who had once thought that Isabella was merely a plaything, easily manipulated. Previously, her relationships with Alejandro and Santiago had seemed like mere pieces in a power game. But now everything became more complex than ever. Alejandro, who had always lingered on the sidelines, monitoring her every move, had long known the truth about Isabella's lineage. This understanding allowed him not only to see her strong and independent exterior, but also to recognize the latent power within her, the power of one who belonged to a noble family. Alejandro had once concealed his feelings and the confessions he dared not reveal to anyone. Now, with the new truth laid bare, he realized that Isabella was not merely a tool, but a symbol of the exaltation and power that her aristocratic heritage brought. However, that same truth also revealed Santiago's true purpose, a man who had never dared to admit his feelings. Santiago, the one who had always lurked in the shadows, had sought to seize Isabella not out of love, but for the purpose of revenge. He was willing to use every trick and every scheme to wrest control of the power that her family possessed. To Santiago, Isabella was not the woman he loved. She was simply the final pawn on his chessboard of power, a piece to complete his victory in the endless battle between opposing forces. The secret meetings between Isabella and Santiago grew tense, filled with intrigue and double-edged words. Every whispered phrase, every exchanged glance carried the intention of someone trying to manipulate her fate. With the instinct of a woman born of noble blood, Isabella quickly realized that she could not allow Santiago to easily gain the upper hand. Though his eyes always exuded a cold demeanor, inside, Santiago was secretly nurturing a deep-seated hatred. His desire did not merely stop at taking control, it extended to a determined vengeance against her family, a family that had once clashed with the forces with which Santiago was associated. In every moment, Isabella felt the weight of history, of a bloodline marked by upheavals, losses, and revenge. She recalled the stories her grandmother had told her, the whispers of the past echoing through the corridors of time. The truth about her identity not only brought her pride, but also a tremendous burden. A burden she had to bear to protect her family's honor, to erase the old wounds of an unforgettable past. Alejandro, though outwardly calm, silently encouraged Isabella. He never gave up because he understood that only when she recognized her own strength could all the schemes and troubles hidden in the darkness be exposed. He shared with her fragments of memories, untold stories about her lineage, stories told only on long, moonlit nights when one could shed all the layers of fear and delusion. Their bond was not merely a relationship between two people, but a profound empathy shared by two souls bound by the same fate. As Isabella wrestled with her newly revealed identity, she could not help but reflect on her own past. Every old photograph, every plain letter reminded her of the mysterious connections between two rival families, a relationship long arranged by unchangeable destinies. She wondered, am I merely a piece on the chessboard of fate, or can I write my own story? These reflections gradually became a flame within her, driving her to stand up and assert that even if she were the final pawn, she still had the right to decide her own steps. Moreover, her true identity made her both vulnerable and incredibly strong. She felt an immense responsibility, not only to herself, but to her entire lineage, to those who had sacrificed and struggled against fate. Whenever faced with the coldness of an enemy, she remembered the teachings of her parents, the memories of hard but proud days. That feeling surged like a rising tide, carrying the power of faith and determination, ensuring that she would never falter in the face of any danger. Santiago, with all his schemes and ruthless calculations, gradually realized that Isabella was not an easy target to manipulate. She was not only the lost child, but also a symbol of a proud bloodline, with every drop of blood carrying pride and vengeance. In every confrontation, her gaze challenged fate, causing Santiago to feel constricted, even though deep inside he still harbored profound hatred. He increasingly wanted to seize and control her fate, but he also recognized that Isabella had grown into a woman whose beauty was matched by strength and resilience, making her impossible to easily dominate. During long nights when darkness enveloped everything, Isabella would often sit by the window,
Her eyes clouded as she gazed into the endless void. She reminded herself that her true identity was not only a burden, but also an invaluable source of strength. Every word spoken by her parents, every family memory, had become the driving force that helped her face the challenges ahead. She realized that whether fate was predetermined or not, it was courage and self-determination that were the keys to unlocking the doors to freedom and justice. And once she understood that, Isabella gradually transformed her pain and entrapment into inspiration to move forward. In the midst of her spiritual battle with the past, Isabella began searching for signs of herself in places few would think to look. She returned to the old locales of her childhood, listened to the whispers of the wind through ancient trees, and found within them fragments of memories, pieces that now form the complete picture of her life. Every story, every memory further filled her with pride for her noble lineage, yet at the same time made her realize that power and honor always came with inevitable sacrifices. Alejandro, who had witnessed Isabella's transformation from a puppet in the past, now stood by her side as a loyal companion. He knew that to combat the malevolent forces, only unity and trust could defeat every scheme. In every conversation, in every piece of advice, he constantly reminded her of the inner strength, a strength forged from faith, from love, and from the desire for freedom. That bond grew even stronger, as both of them recognized that although the world around them was rife with plots and betrayals, only humanity and loyalty could guide one through any storm. Isabella was no longer the weak girl everyone once thought her to be. She had turned her old wounds into weapons, transformed her pain into power, and used the truth about her identity to stand against every enemy. Every action, every decision radiated confidence and resolve, a declaration that no matter how many forces attempted to manipulate her, she would preserve her identity and freedom. She knew that the road ahead would not be smooth, but it was precisely those hardships that gave her life its value and defined who she was. In every tense confrontation with Santiago, in every exchanged glance and insinuated word, Isabella increasingly felt that she could not allow anyone else to dictate her fate. Despite a past filled with intrigues and painful fragments of memory, she always believed that truth and courage would help her overcome every obstacle. The awareness of the noble blood flowing in her veins completely changed her perspective on life. She was no longer a plaything or a pawn easily defeated, but a true warrior, ready to face any challenge to protect the values of her family and herself. As the days passed, Isabella increasingly affirmed her position in the game of power. Every step she took was a declaration of her identity, a convergence of the past and the present, of broken memories and belief in the future. She knew that to overcome everything, she needed not only physical strength, but also the strength of the soul, a power forged from unwavering belief in herself and the roots of her noble lineage. And in those very moments of ups and downs, Isabella rediscovered herself, a woman who would never be easily subdued, a woman who would fight until the end to defend truth and justice. Before her lay the overall picture of an endless battle, a battle between evil and truth, between power and humanity. Santiago, despite his cold exterior and devious schemes, was only a part of that vast game. And Isabella, with her true identity revealed, had become the final pawn that no one could easily remove. She continued on her thorny path, her eyes aglow with faith and determination. Every step she took echoed like a declaration that she would never be looked down upon or underestimated, for within her burned an unquenchable flame, the flame of freedom, of justice, and of sincere love. In the days that followed, as every conspiracy was gradually unveiled, Isabella stood up to assert that she was not only a symbol of strength, but also a beacon of hope for those oppressed by the darkness of the past. She understood that no matter how many traps fate laid, Only courage and determination could bring light to a new future. And even though Santiago, with all his dark intrigues, continued to lurk on the sidelines,
The truth about her identity had opened a door that could never be closed. The door to freedom, to independence,
and to a fate that no one could dictate. With each passing day, the image of the noble-blooded girl grew more vivid. Isabella was not simply a character in a power struggle, but a testament to the strength of self-determination. She had overcome every prejudice, every pressure, and now, knowing her true identity, she was even more determined to protect the values of her family and of herself. Her heart, though once shattered by the weight of the past, now beat powerfully with belief in the future, a future that she would write with her own hands. Finally, as night fell and the stars twinkled in the sky, Isabella stood silently before a mirror. Her eyes reflected not only the image of a beautiful woman, but also the strength of an indomitable bloodline. She whispered to herself,
I am not a plaything. I am not a pawn to be sacrificed. I am me, a person with the right to decide and the strength to write my own destiny.
and in that moment, it was as if the entire universe resonated in agreement, as if every star knew that ultimately, truth always triumphs over darkness.
With that resolve, Isabella continued on her path, a path full of hardships, but also overflowing with hope and the light of truth.
No matter how many dark forces lurked in wait, she believed that love, loyalty,
And inner strength would always be the ultimate weapons to overcome any challenge. And with every passing second, with every breath,
she gradually realized that her true identity was not only the mark of a bitter past, but also the symbol of a vibrant life, of an undying belief.
Isabella, the girl who would never succumb to fate, had now become a lighthouse guiding lost souls.
Her identity was not just her past, but also her future, a promise that no matter how many traps destiny set,
Each person could define the value of their own life. And thus, Isabella's story had officially become a legend, a symbol of resilience, of courage, and of an unquenchable yearning for freedom. Isabella turned the tables. The luxurious lights of Monte Carlo shone brilliantly in the night, sparkling in the sky like precious jewels and reflecting on the deep blue waters of the Mediterranean Sea. In one of Monaco's most opulent hotels, where the world's most powerful people converged, Isabella entered the final party, a night that would decide not only her fate, but also that of the two Devereux brothers, Alejandro and Santiago. She wore a form-fitting black silk dress. Her soft yet resilient features were reflected under the dazzling glow of the crystal chandelier. In Isabella's eyes, this was not merely a party. This was a battlefield, and she was the one holding the decisive card.
In her hand was a small USB drive, but its power could change everything.
It contained a video clip proving the past misdeeds of the two Devereux brothers, a truth that, if revealed, would destroy their empire. She had not sought it out, but when fate placed it in her hand, Isabella understood that she had to use it to protect herself.
But what did that mean? Whom to choose? Whom to betray?
In a quiet corner of the party, Alejandro stood there, a glass of red wine in hand, his piercing gaze fixed on her. The light from the chandelier above accentuated the perfect angles of this man's face, a man born to dominate.
Isabella.
His voice rang out low, seductive yet fraught with danger. "Do you know what you're doing?" She did not answer immediately, simply pursing her lips with determined eyes. She knew that Alejandro was not easily swayed. He might not be entirely evil, but he was an ambitious man, a person who would not hesitate to destroy anyone who stood in his way. Alejandro set his wineglass on the table and stepped closer, his dark eyes never leaving her. "I know you've found something, but do you think you can use it against me? You don't understand this world." "Isabella, here, the weak are always crushed." Isabella gripped the USB tightly in her hand. "And what if the weak find a way to overthrow the strong?" Alejandro gave a slight, tense smile. "Do you know you're betting your very life?" She felt no fear, She could no longer be afraid. From the other side of the room, Santiago observed everything. Dressed in a perfect black suit, he stepped closer to Isabella, inserting himself between her and Alejandro like a predator entering an opponent's territory. He was not like Alejandro.
If Alejandro was a dominator with a strategic mind,
Then Santiago was a true hunter, brutal, dangerous, and ready to kill if necessary. "Isabella," he said in a low tone, his eyes gleaming with calculation.
you did very well finding this secret.
Alejandro's jaw tightened.
Santiago?
"This is none of your business."
Oh,
"But it is my business." "Brother,"
Santiago replied with a sly smile.
then turned to Isabella.
You know,
"What you're holding could destroy us both. But if you choose to side with me, you'll be safe." She said nothing. Santiago stepped even closer, his voice hypnotic. "If you choose me, you will be safe. If you choose him, you will die." Those words rang out in the sumptuous surroundings of the party, carrying a chilling threat. It was not an offer, but a command. Did Isabella still have a choice? She looked from Alejandro to Santiago. Both of these men were dangerous. Both were powerful. Each could either protect her or destroy her. But Isabella had not come here to choose. She had come here to end the game. Slowly, she lifted the USB drive, her fingers gliding over its smooth surface. Then, to the astonishment of both men, she clenched her hand and she shattered it. The plastic and metal fragments scattered in her palm. Alejandro froze. Santiago did as well. The entire room seemed to fall silent. "No one between you two has the right to decide my fate," Isabella said coolly, her eyes blazing. "You both play this game of power, but I am not anyone's pawn." She threw the fragments of the USB onto the floor and turned her back to walk away, leaving the Devereaux brothers and their secret behind. A secret now forever buried. In that moment, she was no longer a pawn in their game. She was the master of her own destiny. Neither Alejandro nor Santiago pursued her. They merely stood there, watching the one woman who could have overthrown them walk out of their lives, carrying a victory that required no weapon other than herself. Isabella stood silently in the room, her breathing ragged. Alejandro's lavish mansion seemed to close in around her like a golden cage. Outside the window, the brilliant red sunset served as a reminder that today marked an important milestone, the moment she reclaimed her freedom. Or not. Alejandro approached slowly, yet surely. His eyes were as cold as sharpened blades, fixed on Isabella. Yet within them lay something unpredictable. It was neither anger nor resentment, but absolute control. His lips curved into a mysterious, nonchalant smile. "Do you think you've won?" he whispered, his voice as light as a breath, yet echoing in Isabella's mind like a verdict. "Not at all. The game has only just begun." She stepped back, feeling her back press against the cold wall. She had fought. She had battled with everything she had. She had planned, found an escape route, and tried with all her might to break free from Alejandro and the world he had built around her. Yet now, standing before him, she felt as if all those efforts were merely part of a play, and she was still just a pawn on his chessboard. Memories rushed through Isabella like a storm. The early days when she first stepped into Alejandro's life, the moments they spent together, the tension, the rare sweet moments, and the tangled web of lies from which there was no escape. She remembered the first time Alejandro brought her to this mansion, when she was still naive enough to think she could control everything. But she was mistaken. Alejandro was not only a powerful man, he was a master of the game, and no matter how clever she was, she could not easily evade the moves that had been predetermined. Her heart was filled with conflict. Did she truly want to break away from Alejandro? Or was there a part of her that had been forever imprisoned in his gaze, in the moments when he touched her, in the words that were both threatening and tender? Isabella clenched her hands. No, she could not allow herself to waver. She had come too far to turn back now. "I no longer belong to you, Alejandro," she said, her voice trembling slightly but filled with determination. I have chosen my own path." Alejandro moved even closer, so that she could feel his breath brush against her skin.
Do you really think so?
He leaned down and whispered in her ear,
Isabella,
Don't you understand?
"You can leave, but you will never truly escape me. Because wherever you go, you will always remember me. Always wonder if anyone can love you the way I did. And when you realize that no one can, you will come back."
She closed her eyes, trying to dismiss his words. But deep inside, she knew Alejandro was right. He had become a part of her in a way that she could neither explain nor control.
The next day, Isabella left. She stepped out of the mansion's door, the sunlight illuminating her face like a sign of freedom. Had she won then? But as she walked along the long road before her, her heart felt strangely empty. Every step seemed to drag along an invisible tether, something that could never be completely severed. She had left Alejandro, but why did she feel still bound? Was it because of love? Or the fear that she would never find anyone else who could make her feel as alive as Alejandro once did? The final question echoed in her mind. Had Isabella truly escaped, or had she become a part of this world forever? In the distance, Alejandro stood on the balcony, watching her depart. He did not call her back, nor did he shout her name. He simply smiled faintly, his eyes contemplative yet full of control, because he knew the game was not over. In fact, it had only just begun. In a world of lavish deceit and power, Isabella was not merely a pawn to be manipulated. She was the one who dared to stand up and change her own destiny. The struggle between Alejandro and Santiago was not just a contest between two powerful men, but also a clear testament to the ruthlessness of high society, where people are turned into tools to serve personal agendas. No one is truly innocent in a game of power, and Isabella learned that from her own experiences. Life always puts people at harsh crossroads, and choices are not always easy. Isabella understood that the price of freedom was sacrifice. She could not simply leave without facing consequences. In this world, everything comes with its price: power, love, or even the truth. She once thought she was just an ordinary girl, but when her true identity was revealed, she realized that she had never been given the option of a peaceful path. Her choices not only determined her own fate, but also changed the entire board on which Alejandro and Santiago were playing. No longer a puppet, no longer a pawn to be manipulated, Isabella was forced to become a true player. When confronted with the truth, she had believed it would set her free, but in reality, it did not. Upon discovering the past of the Devereux family, upon learning that both Alejandro and Santiago were exploiting her, Isabella realized that the truth does not liberate anyone. It only changes the rules of the game. Accepting the truth meant that she no longer had an escape. When Alejandro looked at her with his cold, sharp gaze and said that the game had only just begun, it was not a threat, but an affirmation that once one steps into this world, no one can leave unscathed. That was when she realized that she could not back down. Isabella might have escaped, but was she truly free, or had she simply become a part of this game? Alejandro might have won the current round, but the true victor was Isabella, because she had reclaimed the right to control her own life. Yet the world was not so simple. Alejandro might have lost a chess game, but he had never truly accepted defeat. When he said that the game had only just begun, it meant that Isabella was now forever bound to his world. But this time she was no longer the prey. She was a real player. Isabella's story is a testament to a harsh truth. In life, sometimes winning does not mean leaving the game, but rather learning to play it your own way. Not everyone has the courage to change their destiny, but if you do not dare to fight, you will forever remain a puppet. Power, money, love, or even freedom, everything comes at a cost. The important question is whether one is willing to pay the price to protect oneself. If you enjoyed this story, please share your thoughts by leaving a comment below. Who would you choose if you were Isabella, Alejandro, the cold but powerful one, or Santiago, the alluring yet dangerous one? Don't forget to like and share this story so that many others can join in this dramatic journey. And if you don't want to miss out on more captivating stories, subscribe to our channel right now. The game is not over, and many secrets are yet to be revealed.